An emergency broadcast on television announces a new virus at an airport, turning the infected into terrifyingly violent individuals.
Moments later, the news shows the airport on fire. 2 months later, the virus has spread globally, becoming a pandemic that turns people into creatures resembling a mix of zombies and savage beasts.
They are called ferals.
The government attempts to set up quarantine zones.
However, large crowds protest, demanding rights for the ferals. They argue the ferals are still human.
The military takes control of the streets, clashing with citizens to enforce a lockdown, but the situation worsens. All television signals are lost.
Abigail and her younger brother get a call from their father.
A pilot, he explains he's overwhelmed with work helping people.
He tells his children they will be safe with their mother.
Suddenly, a noise is heard from upstairs. The family rushes out of the house.
As they get into the car, a feral lunges and attacks the mother. Abigail quickly hides under the car.
She watches in horror as the feral kills her mother, then turns on her brother. The sound of approaching police sirens scares the feral away.
Abigail hears her brother faintly call her name, just as her mother transforms into a feral and kills him. Abigail cries uncontrollably. Hearing her, the mother feral lunges, but Cassius saves her just in time. Abigail hugs him gratefully, but soon her brother also turns into a feral. Cassius tells Abigail to close her eyes before shooting the boy.
10 years later, humanity is scarce, and nature has reclaimed the cities. In a forest, a teenage Abigail is hunting, clearly well trained by Cassius.
Abigail takes down a deer with a single shot, but Cassius still scolds her for being too impatient.
That night, they set up camp. Cassius checks that the tripwire traps are all set.
Hours later, a wire alerts him. He rushes out of his tent and finds a tuft of fur on the wire. Hearing a noise, he calms his horse before pulling out his gun and shooting an approaching feral. He suspects this feral was a scout for a larger pack.
Cassius quickly wakes Abigail, and they prepare to leave immediately.
For days, they travel continuously, with Cassius training Abigail in survival skills during every stop.
One day, they spot a car in the distance.
They take out their rifles to get a better look. A man is fighting with a feral, but another one rushes him from behind. Abigail wants to help the man but fires too early, her bullet hitting both the man and a feral.
Cassius kills the remaining feral that emerged from the car.
Once it's clear, Abigail searches for supplies while Cassius mercifully ends the wounded man's suffering with a knife before taking his boots. Just then, the car's radio crackles to life. Abigail wants to warn the person on the other end about the feral pack in the area, but Cassius stops her.
Suddenly, several vehicles arrive.
A group of survivors with weapons drawn surrounds the pair. They examine the dead man and, seeing he was killed by a human bullet, conclude that Cassius and Abigail murdered their friend for supplies.
The group's leader is about to kill them both when Cassius and Abigail attack the nearest people to seize their weapons.
The two sides are in a standoff until a pregnant woman named Megan gets out of a car and tries to de-escalate the situation.
Just then, a dog barks in alarm.
A pack of ferals appears and surrounds them all, forcing everyone to open fire.
They fight hard, but the ferals are too numerous. Cassius and Abigail draw their knives for close quarters combat. However, the other survivors are only skilled with guns. The ferals begin picking them off one by one.
A woman tries to throw a Molotov cocktail but is attacked dropping it on a car. The explosion sends Cassius flying.
One survivor is bitten and tries to put himself down, but he's out of bullets and turns into a feral.
The group's leader is caught by a giant feral and beaten to death.
Another feral attacks Megan's husband David, but he kicks it away.
Abigail rushes David and Megan to a vehicle while Cassius fights off a few more ferals before joining them.
As they drive off, A feral jumps onto the roof. Cassius slams on the brakes to throw it off.
Abigail uses the moment to grab supplies, and they escape.
The giant feral, discovering its mate has been killed, roars in anger.
Once on the road, Abigail checks their supplies and finds they are low on ammunition. Megan says her group was heading to a riverside community.
8 months pregnant, she planned to give birth there.
But Abigail and Cassius think finding the community is too risky, as many they've encountered were already destroyed.
Suddenly, their car breaks down. They discover the engine is dead, forcing the group to continue on foot.
They soon arrive at a deserted town and decide to spend the night. They clear a building to ensure no ferals are nearby, then set up camp. Megan offers to share her food, but Cassius and Abigail refuse, explaining they only eat what they hunt to avoid the risk of infection. David and Megan explain they contacted the community by radio and know it has plenty of supplies and doctors, but the journey could take a week. Abigail tells them she and Cassius are heading to the west coast to escape to an island by boat. After setting up his tripwires, Cassius takes out a map and shows David and Megan the route to the community.
However, Cassius refuses to go with them, arguing that the feral pack will surely track them for revenge.
Abigail speaks with Cassius privately, pleading with him to help David and Megan, suggesting this community might be different, but Cassius remains firm in his decision.
Late that night, the feral pack follows their trail and finds the abandoned car.
They continue down the road toward the town.
Meanwhile, neither of the men can sleep.
Cassius shows David a bullet he always keeps, just in case he gets bitten by a feral one day.
David's only keepsakes are a single cigarette and an injured leg.
As the two men talk and bond, Cassius finally decides he will help guide them to the community.
The next morning, Abigail hears a noise and goes downstairs to investigate.
A feral attacks her, knocking the gun from her hand, but she quickly dispatches it with her knife. A second feral gives chase. Abigail throws it from the building, nearly falling with it, but Cassius grabs her just in time.
By the time the feral pack arrives at the building, the group is gone. One feral trips a wire trap and is killed instantly.
After traveling for a while, Abigail recognizes they are near a civilian airfield.
It's where her father used to keep his small plane. Cassius disagrees with going there, as an airfield is open ground where the ferals could easily surround them. But the other three want to go, so Cassius has to yield to the majority. After a while, they find an old building with a car nearby.
There's a body of a man who was recently shot. Cassius tells Abigail to check the building for supplies and that they'll leave as soon as she returns, sensing they might not be alone. Abigail only finds a small amount of coffee, not noticing a family hiding in one of the rooms.
Cassius checks the car's trunk, finds a wheelchair, and tells Megan to use it.
Not long after they leave,
the feral pack arrives at the building and kills the hiding family.
Cassius's group reaches the airfield. They find no planes left.
David and Cassius discuss their next move, but Abigail interrupts them.
She has found her father's hammer, and inside, his plane is still there.
David, being a mechanic, can fix it. While David works, Cassius and Abigail search the building.
Abigail finds a photo of her and her father on the floor.
She hangs it back on the wall. Just then, the feral pack arrives at the airfield.
Everyone scrambles onto the plane, even though it's not ready.
Cassius tries to buy time by shooting at the ferals while David manually spins the propeller to start the engine. Abigail, with only limited knowledge of flying, gets the plane moving very slowly as the ferals close in.
Luckily, she finds the right control and the plane accelerates. A feral leaps and clings to the door.
Cassius shoots it off, and the plane successfully takes off. However, They aren't in the air for long before the engine fails, and they start to descend rapidly.
Abigail attempts an emergency landing, but the plane clips a tree before hitting the ground hard.
Fortunately, it doesn't flip, and everyone survives with only minor injuries.
They continue on foot and find a train station.
After checking that it's clear, they decide to rest there for the night. Cassius looks at the map, estimating it will take 2 more days to reach the community.
Abigail checks their supplies and realizes they are almost out of ammo.
As Megan and Cassius share food, he admits that she reminds him of his late wife. Cassius had to kill her family after they were infected. Shortly after, his wife took her own life, unable to bear the pain. Cassius also mentions a boy who was bitten by a feral, but not on a major artery. It took him days to fully turn into a feral.
Meanwhile, David inspects his ankle in private.
The truth is, David is infected. He knows it's time to put himself down.
He raises his gun, but can't bring himself to do it.
The next day, as the group walks under the sun, David starts feeling unwell, and Cassius notices blood seeping through his pant leg. Cassius confronts him, and upon learning the truth, tells David he must tell everyone, or Cassius will deal with him himself. That evening, they find a house with lights on. As they approach, a voice calls out, asking what they want.
Cassius thinks the situation is too dangerous. But Abigail walks closer, explaining they have a pregnant woman with them and need help. A man, Norton, opens the door, pointing a gun at them.
He orders them to place their weapons in a chest outside before inviting them in. Norton acts friendly, explaining that as an engineer, he built a device to generate electricity and hot water. He mentions his wife, but ignores Megan's question about her. He then shares bread and vegetables with everyone. Norton shows them old photos on a laptop of his wife when she was pregnant before the outbreak. When Cassius checks on Megan, she tells him she hasn't felt the baby move since they arrived at the house.
The baby in her womb hasn't moved at all. Megan makes Cassius promise something.
If anything happens to her, he must protect her child.
After that,
Norton serves everyone drinks.
He then says
he has lived here for 20 years.
He'd heard about the community
on the radio,
but wasn't interested in joining.
He prefers to live alone. Norton then starts speaking negatively
about people who are obsessed with returning to the old way of life. He believes humanity should learn a lesson from the pandemic, as humans destroyed the world and their own morality.
Cassius then notices a strange knife on the table.
Before he can react, Norton snatches it away.
Meanwhile, David's condition worsens, and he rushes to the bathroom, where he sees the infection has spread all over his body.
When he comes out, everyone else has passed out. Norton drugged their drinks. He dons a lab coat, holding a strange device. When Norton sees David, he immediately knows he's infected.
Norton activates his device, which emits a high-frequency wave, causing David to collapse in pain. Norton explains the device works like a dog whistle, only affecting the infected. David then loses consciousness. Meanwhile, the feral pack reaches the train station.
They continue their relentless pursuit. Later, David wakes up to find everyone tied up in the basement. Norton is taking notes for his experiment.
He reveals that he has kept his infected wife locked in a cage. Norton releases her and controls her with his device, ordering her to attack the group.
But Abigail and Cassius, both skilled fighters, kick Norton's wife away. She then turns on David instead. He struggles free from his ropes and manages to subdue her.
Norton quickly uses his device to stop David from helping the others.
But since David hasn't fully turned, he fights through the pain and manages to untie Cassius.
Once free, Cassius grabs a gun and tries to shoot Norton, but he escapes.
Everyone runs upstairs, locking Norton in the basement. As Norton tries to break down the door with an axe, Abigail grabs the car keys.
Cassius goes back for their gear and angrily punches David. He wants to shoot David right there, but Megan and Abigail stop him. As they all head for the car, Megan's water breaks. Norton emerges from the house to see them driving away.
Cassius's group heads into the forest and runs into the feral pack, which begins a frenzied chase. After driving for a while, they see lights in the distance.
This means they are close to the community. They speed up, only to find a fallen tree blocking the road.
Everyone must get out and proceed on foot as the ferals close in.
They try to fight back,
but David runs out of bullets, knowing he's about to turn. David tells the others to run while he holds of the ferals.
The couple says their final goodbye. Cassius then gives David the bullet he had been saving. Once the others are a safe distance away, David lights his cigarette.
He turns to fight the ferals with his bare hands.
He takes down several, but then the giant feral appears and snaps his neck. The remaining ferals continue to chase the 3 survivors.
Abigail provides cover fire for Cassius, who is carrying Megan. He screams for help at the top of his lungs, and the guards at the community gate hear him. They open fire on the pursuing ferals. Seeing their fallen comrades and the lights of the community, the ferals decide to retreat into the forest. Once inside, Megan is taken to the infirmary for immediate care.
The next morning, after meeting the community's leader,
Cassius tells Abigail they should leave, as people can't be trusted. But Abigail doesn't want to run anymore and ignores his warning. Later, a doctor tells Cassius that the baby is fine, but the mother won't survive.
Cassius visits Megan and sees the newborn baby girl.
Megan has named her Hope. Megan asks Cassius to keep the promise he made to her before giving him a family locket and passing away.
Meanwhile, Norton has tracked them to the edge of the forest.
He finds bodies scattered everywhere. As he explores, Norton spots the community.
Just then, the feral pack finds him.
As they try to attack Norton, he quickly activates his control device. He then coldly declares,
"It's time for revenge." Inside the community, Cassius is looking after Hope, pondering his next move. Meanwhile, Abigail starts to bond with the teenagers in the community, joining a small party with them that evening.
The teens give the guards drinks, causing them to fall asleep so they can sneak into a tunnel. Abigail follows them inside and finds a remote.
She picks it up, but a teen named Roderick stops her, explaining that the entire town is wired with explosives.
The remote is the detonator, to be used if the ferals ever break in.
All the humans would survive by escaping through an underground passage that leads to an abandoned dam. The next morning, Norton sees a guard on a boat and pretends to ask for help. After dealing with the first guard, a feral jumps into the water.
It climbs aboard and takes out another guard.
Norton then commands the entire feral pack to attack.
As people are killed all over, some with weapons fight back. Abigail saves Roderick from a feral before assigning tasks to the other teens.
Those with weapons are to get to high ground for safe firing positions, while Roderick will lead the remaining survivors to the dam.
She will go find Cassius.
As chaos engulfs the community, the doctor quickly takes Hope so Cassius can go find Abigail. The feral horde is massive, and their ammunition is running low. The community leader tries to escape, but is killed instantly by a feral. The survivors make it through the tunnel. Once at the dam, they urge Roderick to detonate the bombs and destroy the community, but he hesitates because Abigail isn't back yet.
Meanwhile, inside the community, the giant feral tries to attack Abigail.
Cassius grabs a paddle and hits it hard.
As the monster falls, Abigail notices its bracelet. She realizes this feral is her father.
The shock freezes Abigail for a moment until Cassius snaps her out of it and pulls her toward the tunnel.
The two make it inside just in time. Roderick presses the detonation button, and the entire community is destroyed in an instant, successfully wiping out the feral pack.
Afterwards, the survivors discover one man in their group is infected.
As Cassius tries to console him, a feral lunges out and kills the men instantly. It then turns on Cassius.
The two fight fiercely, tumbling to the ground.
In that moment, the feral is about to bite Cassius. But this time, Abigail is more patient.
She waits for the perfect moment before pulling the trigger, killing the feral with a precise shot.
The remaining survivors look at their burning community, wondering what to do next. Abigail says that everyone can help build a new community right here at the dam.
Cassius also managed to grab Norton's journal, which contains instructions on how to build a generator. The movie then ends.